It's the intel about the next generation of Bulldogs. This is Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger.
Let's go.
Welcome in. I'm Kaylee Mansell with DawgNation Recruiting Insider Jeff Sentell. We've got the club going up on a Tuesday here on Before the Hedges.
On a Tuesday.
Some good news coming in from Athens over the weekend, not just what happened on the field, but also Georgia picks up 2028 tight end commit Asa Wall, who happens to be the son of former UGA fullback JT Wall. Can you walk me through how the commitment happened?
Well, first of all, Asa, first one in the class of 2028. Maybe we should play that theme music whenever, the Before the Hedges theme music, whenever a guy commits. He's a legacy. It's pretty funny. JT told me he's stopped trying to even masquerade about it when he takes pictures with his son, because his son is already 2 or 3 inches taller than him. He actually, if you see the lady, the silhouette behind him, that's his mom, who is 6 feet 2 inches as well. Asa is a 2028. Kaylee, he has offers. He has about 8 offers. He's visited Alabama. He's visited Georgia, other schools. But he gets the legacy offer. And then basically, JT told me he was going to let Asa handle the meeting. They've been to every Georgia home game this year, especially the major ones. And they just drove up thinking they were going to talk to Coach Smart before the game. They got that audience, and Asa kind of grabbed the reins on it. He's like, he committed. He's done. They're committed. And Kaylee, this is a guy, now everybody's going to say, first thing, contrarians are, go ahead, stand up in the choir. It's GIA football. Folks, if Asa was doing this at McEachern, Parkview, wherever, Grayson, Carrollton, he'd be doing this stuff right now. He's just a sophomore. Kaylee, the numbers, the strength, I think he's squatting 5. He's power cleaning close to 3. He was bench pressing 315 as a high school sophomore. This, folks, is an absolute dog. Coming to the Dogs. Because
he's a member of 2028, I believe that there's only the top 100 players really so far, because it's still really early in the cycle. So, when his ranking debuts, what do you expect it to be, and what's his greatest skill set as a tight end?
I mean, first of all, Kaylee, these highlights are everywhere. He is, I think, the leading sacker on the team. He has the most pancake blocks, or the second most, the leading receiver. He runs the ball a little bit, like second or third leading rusher. He is all over the place in terms of what they do. He's averaging close to 20 yards per catch. I think, Kaylee, when this guy, especially since he's already committed to Georgia, handpicked by Hartley, I think he's going to wind up as a pretty close to a 5-star tight end, just because he's so physical already. I mean, he's going to be in the high 4 to 5-star range. He's going to be one of the top 5 tight ends in the country. And Asa Wall, you love that Kirby building all of these legacies into his roster, because they know what it means to be a Bulldog.
So Georgia picks up commit and Asa Wall. They also left a lasting impression on a lot of the guys that visited this past weekend for the game against Ole Miss. We're going to go through some of the best reactions from the guys that visited. And along with that, we'll also talk about Georgia's most recent decommit, the defensive lineman Corey Howard, and how Georgia moves forward from that. Then also we've got a DawgNation conversation with 5-star safety Chance Gilbert out of East Coweta, class of 2027. We'll follow it up with some of the best plays from the 2026 class. I believe Jeff said it best. This was the week of buys and blowouts. So we're going to show you what we've got. And then, of course, we're going to follow it up with the best performance and our dog of the week. And then when we get to our class breakdown later in the show, a lot of movement on the top targets list. Also, a lot of names added. So I'm excited to get to that part. But I think it's time that we go over some of the best reactions from Saturday, because Georgia showed up in a big way, not just on the field, not just in the final score, but it left recruits feeling some type of way about Georgia. What do you think it was that they saw on Saturday that maybe changed their perception the most?
Kaylee, it's weird. It's weird because, I've been doing this a decade, and the recruit reaction you collect is totally different. The things they're saying about the offense, the worries about the defense, like everybody almost said something to the extent on the defensive side. They said, well, they finally got to stop when it mattered. And I'm like, rewind here. I'm not used to hearing this about Georgia football and its defense, but there's so many, Kaylee. I would challenge anybody. Like, the only games that I can remember being that loud during the Kirby Smart era, maybe 2019 Notre Dame, maybe 2022 Tennessee when they came in number 1. I thought this was the loudest this season. The stadium has been all season. When they got really geeked out in the fourth quarter and when those stops started happening on third down. I mean, it was a great environment. The recruits, they had so much things to say. We've got some breakout, pull-out quotes. But, Kaylee, the main thing is, one of the things I wrote about this week on DawgNation on Monday is I've got like a 9-point checklist to say, was it a good recruiting weekend? And this is what happens here. Did the Dogs win? Yes. Was it electric? Yes. Did they get a commitment? Yes. Did they get a silent? Well, maybe. Did they change the minds of people that were looking elsewhere? Yes. Did they reinforce the commitments of current commitments that were trying to be flip targets? Yes. Did they get 5 stars and sophomores and juniors? Did they turn their heads? Yes. All the way up and down. This was a great checked every box recruiting weekend.
It's funny because you talk about the crowd atmosphere and the noise. You're not the only person that I've heard say it was the loudest that they've ever heard of in Sanford Stadium. And what we're going to do is go through some of these pull quotes, starting with 2 guys that are already committed to Georgia, kind of what Jeff talked about, that reinforcing. I thought the tight end, Braden Fogel, who's a commit in the 2026 class, he put it best in terms of if you could have one word to describe what that game was on Saturday, it was legendary. Short, sweet, to the point. I don't know if there was a better way to describe the moment and the feeling of that game other than legendary.
Folks, let me zoom in a little bit on Braden. First of all, great dude to talk to. Hartley always finds guys like that. Really athletic. He plays linebacker. He punts. He's a tight end for his team, which is in high school ball. That means he's an out wide, flexed out receiver. But there is something special happening with Fogel and Nick Abrams and Caden Prothero. Kaylee, Abrams is coming from Maryland. Fogel's coming from Ohio. The guy does not sleep, Kaylee. He plays his football game. He stays up all night. He gets on like a 5 o'clock bird out of Cleveland or Columbus and gets to Atlanta, and he's in Athens by like 11 a.m. for these games. The boy does not sleep. I told him, I said, man, you're going to be looking like you're 27 years old by the time you graduate. He's like, he can't help it. He wants to be in Athens. He loves being a Dog. He's going to come back for Texas, of course. But those 3, Prothero, Abrams, and Fogel, they're going to be roommates. They're already talking about roommate stuff. So another thing that's on the checklist, do you see current commitments gelling, building that connection bond already by all these home game visits? And you're seeing that a lot with those 3 for sure.
So the next person we're going to look at is also a current Georgia commit, this one in the class of 2027. This is cornerback commit Dante Wright, who's out of California. He said, it just showed me why I committed in the first place, and the staff and everyone around the building just showed me why I want to be there. I mean, reassurance in a game like this is just as important as the guys that you're trying to get, because we know now, especially with him being a 2027, things happen so fast and kids are willing to change their mind on a dime. So having the reassurance is sometimes just as important, if not more important, than the guys that they're trying to grab.
Yeah, Dante Williams has really built a connection there with both him and his father. You see Dante in the black ball cap and the black quarter zip or Nike game day atmosphere, game day fit on the right. He's from California, Kelly. What does that mean? USC is going to try. UCLA is going to try. Oregon's going to try. Arizona State's going to try. Everybody out there is going to try. And this was a way where Georgia could kind of put some cement around that recruitment moving forward, especially for a 2027 corner. Kaylee, we also must give him his proper billing. This is the highest rated commitment in Georgia's 2027 class right now, just a little ahead of Kelsey Adams.
The next one I am so excited for. We're going to read it, and then I'm going to give you the credit that you deserve. This comes from the 5-star tight end, Brock Williams, who was a little bit worried about Georgia's lack of tight end production. He doesn't need to have any worries anymore. He said, everything about Georgia stood out, and my guy, Lawson Lucky, got in the end zone 3 times, and Oscar Delp had a ton of catches too. It was good seeing a freshman in there too. Again, that's the 2027 5-star tight end, Brock Williams. Jeff called it. He said, watch the tight end production go up on Saturday. I wasn't going to believe it till I saw it. And then next thing you know, Lawson Lucky, the first Georgia pass catcher to have 3 touchdowns in one game since 2008. I can't help but wonder if maybe Brock Williams had something to do with that after he called Georgia out. But good job to you, because you were spot on.
I mean, it's what they did to get tight ends against the in the Ole Miss and the Tennessee game last year. There were some guys in the house, and they had to show it for Mark Bowman and Braden Fogel and Lincoln Keys and all that, and that's what they did. I think it's a legacy game for both Lawson Lucky and Gunnar Stockton against Ole Miss. But I talked to Brock later on. That was just the pull quote. Brock was like, first of all, there's a story, and this is what we're going to call a little tease, Kaylee, on the pages of DawgNation.com. There is a current and former head coach at the University of Georgia involved in the recruitment of Brock Williams. You're going to have to go to DawgNation.com to catch this, but he really likes Georgia. He loved Georgia coming in. He said it was almost a perfect visit. Here's one thing I will share in that story, Kaylee. He brought his girlfriend with him on this visit. Girlfriend did not go on the Ohio State visit.
Oh.
Girlfriend went on the Georgia visit. What does that tell you? What is the girlfriend? We know there's hat science. Kelly, what does that tell you about girlfriend science when the young man brings his girlfriend along with him on a very key, important, unofficial visit?
I'm not going to give you my opinion on that because my thinking is probably a lot different than yours on this.
Sure, no problem. Okay. But I think the way I look at it, the fact that this is the only game she's been to so far, that says something. It kind of ties in with that story that we have on DawgNation.com as well. But Brock, here's one thing also he's going to say. He's going to commit in the first week of December. Ohio State. It really feels like Ohio State and Georgia here, Kaylee. Texas is kind of in there, but, maybe kind of third wheeling a little bit, it feels like, or it sounds like. But he said he's going to try to get back to Georgia again now before he makes his decision in December. But to be fair and accurate, he said he's probably going to go try to see both Georgia and Ohio State again. But that was a great showing. Hartley, I don't know where he dialed it up, and he owes Mike Bobo a couple steaks for putting on a clinic in terms of the tight ends are just fine. Heat check on Georgia tight ends, just fine.
Have you ever heard of something called SEC Pretty?
Yeah.
All right, that's all I needed to know. Let's go ahead and move on because I thought that the 2026 class was done. Now, there have been some people that have dropped from the 2026 class, but I wasn't really sure if they had a guy on their radar that they were really willing to go get that we haven't talked about already. Well, we've got a new name for you. He's going to pop up on our top targets later. This is Tyreek Jamison. He's a 2026 offensive lineman out of Paulding County. This is what he had to say about his visit to Georgia. The violence and the fire they play with, how they play football, I think that would really, really fit me as well. Again, this is 2026 three-star offensive lineman Tyreek Jamison, somebody that we haven't talked about that much on this show. So walk me through what's happening here.
First of all, not just really. So this is an interesting guy. He was over 400 pounds at one point in his high school career. He's dropped all the way down to 320. He was once committed to Kentucky, Kaylee, but then here came Ole Miss knocking on the door, Georgia knocking on the door. That forced the decommitment. He's already been to Ole Miss. Ole Miss finished second to Kentucky over the summer, and then he came back and saw Ole Miss during the game. This was his first time. Well, he's been to Georgia before, but here's what happens. Georgia offers him on the day of his visit. One of the things that Coach Searles told him was like, there's one thing here that shows why you can play for us at Georgia. You were absolutely physical and nasty, kind of in the Dontrell Glover mode. If you know what if you picking up what I'm putting down, DawgNation right there, a guy that's like naturally aggressive. That's what he's drawn to right now. So Georgia, I think it's very much in the mix for Tyreek Jamison, especially now when they only got kind of one true tackle in the class. To be fair, I think Jamison is one of those swing tackles, a guy that can play tackle or guard.
All right, so the last person that we are going to hear from, this is a quarterback.
This is crazy.
5-star quarterback in the class of 2027. This is Christopher Vargas, and Christopher Vargas said, you can see that Saturday belongs to Georgia football. I like their balanced offensive style, and they do throw the ball a ton. Again, this is 2027, 5-star quarterback, Christopher Vargas. But you and I had the conversation last week that Georgia is looking at a 5-star quarterback in the class of 2028. They already have Jared Curtis signed in 2026. Does Georgia need a quarterback in 2027? And if they didn't, does this put one on their radar?
Well, first of all, Kaylee, this is another 2028. Vargas is a 2028. He's the number 2 quarterback in the country. And he's kind of like Jaden Wade insurance, or maybe he's just as good. First of all, he's 6'5", 190 pounds. He's out of Massachusetts. But Kaylee, when I got that quote, I was going to look through the good book and look through Revelations because I was, if we could flash that back again, I kind of heard some pull up that quote one more time. I kind of, in my mind, this is what got me. First of all, you can see the Saturday belongs to Georgia football. I think that needs to be on a billboard or whatever. Sure. But this last part, they do throw the ball a ton. Somewhere, listen to me, Before the Hedges people. If you've been watching this program for a long time, do you remember when 5-star receiver Jaden Hazelwood said he wanted to see the ball in the air? And now flash forward to 2025, and we've got a 5-star quarterback saying that Georgia throws the ball a ton. Somewhere, some way, I can't believe this is happening, but that is a crazy quote.
So you said last week that one of the most important visitors was the offensive tackle out of JUCO, Jermaine Mitchell. We didn't get a chance to hear from him, but how do you think he felt leaving that visit?
Well, first of all, he was grinning like a Cheshire cat. He was so happy to be there. They gave him the front row, and he basically just splayed out in his front row so he could take up a lot of time, take up a lot of room. 6'9", Kaylee, about 320, 325. Currently committed to Mississippi State, but Georgia's been knocking. This was actually the first official visitor of the year for the Dogs for a game day official visit. And I think Georgia did very well on that one. And we're going to wait and see now what communication looks like for the next week. Kaylee, if we're just being frank, being honest, I think Georgia showed him a lot there. And he's got a lot to process now in terms of it is Mississippi State. And he's from Louisiana. He's not from Mississippi, even though he goes to a JUCO in Mississippi. So, like, it's one of those things when if you want to look at one program next to the other, I think Georgia's going to fare up pretty well in that head-to-head.
So, obviously, this has been such a fun conversation to see their reactions, to see how the perceptions change. But I do want to point out that apart from Dante, who's already committed to Georgia, every single person that we've heard from is an offensive player. Yeah. Was there anybody that you know of that was concerned about the defense, or was everybody excited to see what Georgia did on the field?
I think they were excited because they kind of thought that Ole Miss was a premium offensive team and they were going to have to go score for score. And like Nick Abrams, the linebacker out of Maryland, one of the things we could have included a pull quote from him, but Michigan has been trying to flip him as well. And now I've spoken to him, I've talked to him. You see his social media. One of the posts he had on his social media, Kaylee, was he's like, I can't wait till move-in day. At Georgia. So, but one of the things he said to answer your question was he was like, the defense finally made the stops when they had to. And that's kind of one of the things. Nobody's used to seeing Georgia getting taken behind the woodshed a little bit, offensively versus defensively. Sometimes those stops come in the second quarter and third quarter, not in the next to last and the last possessions for the opponent in a game. But I get the feeling that a lot of these recruits just kind of see a lot of players on that side of the ball for Georgia. And what's different about Georgia is they have an exciting team where Mike Bobo, Gunnar Stockton, and the offense could say, all right, Glenn, all right, Kirby, we got this.
Right. We're
going to keep matching score for score, and you guys can figure it out in the fourth quarter.
So overall, it was a big win for Georgia on the recruiting trail, but we know that the recruiting gods, they giveth and they taketh away. They giveth Asa Wall in return. They had to taketh away Corey Howard. So we're going to break that all down here in just a moment. But first, we want to remind you that here on Before the Hedges, we are brought to you by Kroger. And now that we're in football season on Sundays, like the last thing that I want to have to do is get off of my couch, but I really wanted to cook something the other night. It's the beginning of soup season, so I've been killing that. I really wanted to make my special lasagna soup, but I knew there was no way that I was getting off my couch to go to the grocery store and go grab the ingredients. So what did I do? I ordered it on Kroger Boost. Very simple process. It was by the time I put it into the app and it got delivered to my home, it was less than an hour. So it just goes to show the convenience of it, how easy they make it. And I think one of the ingredients that I needed, they didn't have it. He sent me a request for something else to replace it. It was as easy as that. So Kroger.com/boost, always finding a way to help you make your life more convenient, giving time back to yourself, or if it's the case of me, just not wanting to get up off the couch. So if you have more questions about it, visit Kroger.com/boost to sign up today.
Kaylee, would your lasagna soup be considered a fast start to soup season?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
That's your special right there?
That is the one thing that I make better than anything else in this world.
Oh, wow. Lasagna soup.
For sure.
Stay tuned.
All right. So for the second week in a row, Georgia has lost a commit. This time it's the 3-star defensive lineman Corey Howard, who flipped to Bama. Now, he had been flirting with Bama over the last couple of months, but kept saying, no, Georgia's the right girl for me. Georgia's the right girl for me. And then all of a sudden the news drops. What happened?
I asked him point blank on Sunday night when the news dropped, because he took his official for the Tennessee game. And he didn't say anything about the defense, of course. He just said Alabama had a better plan for him. That's basically how he said. He sent me a short text, said better plan. Kaylee, here's how Alabama's been kind of luring him, kind of putting the breadcrumbs on the trail, is they said, hey, man, we don't have as many commitments as Georgia does. Georgia has 18 defensive linemen committed. They actually had 8. And they kept saying, we're losing a lot of defensive linemen next year. We only have 22 commits. We want you to come. We want you to come be part of this in Tuscaloosa. Here's where I was worried. When the young man who's committed to Georgia visits Alabama for an unofficial, I believe it was Louisiana Monroe, and then he says, I'm going to come back in October for the third Saturday in October for Tennessee and the cigar convention in Bryant-Denny. That was something that made me think, hey, there's something there. I did ask him, like you said, he basically told me, I said, hey, man, Georgia played Alabama. He was there for Alabama. He basically said, Georgia did a lot. The relationships, the vibes, they did a lot to kind of keep me kind of locked in. Mm-hmm. And I must admit, this is kind of funny though. Instagram post, Corey Howard, shares the edit from Hayes Fawcett on Instagram, right? Zakai Helton, gotta love this guy. He is Dontrell Glover Part 2, basically, or whatever. And he's like, stay on that side, then, man.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Stay on that side. You know what? Part of that is just SEC football in the trenches.
Right.
But if we look forward, I'm sure Georgia's going to play Alabama in a big game sometime over the next 4 or 5 years. The guy Helton's going to be blocking, obviously, at a guard, maybe a center, and then he might have to deal with Corey Howard as well on the other side.
A little bit of that, like Carrollton-Valdosta rivalry, even though they're on two opposite ends of the state. There is something that I wanted to bring up, and maybe I'm just completely misreading the entire situation, but when he was committed to Georgia, when we get to our class breakdown, he was listed as a defensive lineman instead of an edge. But then in the post that Hayes Fawcett made, it had Corey Howard as an edge. So was it one of those things that maybe Alabama saw him as an edge and Georgia didn't? Do you think that had anything to do with it, or was it just where we had him placed?
I think Alabama presented to him a picture that he could come play edge for them. But Kaylee, he's about 6'5.5" and about 270 right now. He may punt. He may have graceful ballerina feet a little bit. But when you're 270, this is a tried and true metrics right here. When you're 270 in high school, 265, 270 in high school, and you're playing along the defensive line, you're not going to get any thinner. You're not going to get any slimmer. You may change the weight around. The weight might look better, but you're a guy that's going to play inside, and by and large, you're going to play inside more, 3-tech, 5-tech at the most, rather than play out on the edge as a true, pass rusher, hand off the ground, going to pin your ears back and go get a quarterback.
I was just curious because in seeing the edit, that was like the first thing that I clocked. I was like, this is not an edge. But anyway, so I wanted to ask about that. But I mean, the overall big picture relating to Georgia football is, you and I both kind of knew and said that there was 8 million defensive linemen in Georgia's 2026 class. We knew that not all of them would end up there. Corey Howard being one of the ones that might not be on the slides at the end of the year. Looks like that's the case now. But I guess what does this mean for the class of 2026 when it comes to their defensive linemen? Will they try to add or will they stay put?
Yeah, I think they've got to look at that now, Kaylee, and they're really kind of hard to find. But, one of the things I'll say about Corey, I know everybody's going to look at him in a negative light, but, always stand up, easy to work with, great communicator. And, he just found out, Kaylee, here's what it is. He just felt more love at Alabama than he did at Georgia. And, I've been told that perhaps Georgia wasn't recruiting him as hard enough to keep him as hard as Alabama was recruiting him to flip him. And so a lot of times these things happen. The main thing with Corey, I believe, is he really needs to get developed because he's not going to be ready to play right away in the SEC. So I think wherever he goes, he needs to be around a really strong defensive line coach that puts guys into the league. Kaylee, I think the defensive line group, which was at one point thick on your slide in terms of, like a forest of names, I think it thins out a little bit, especially with the uncertain status of Seven Cloud. Now Georgia is down 2, and Georgia actually hosted an edge out of New Manchester, young man by the name of Colin Bussey. He was at Georgia on Saturday. He said it was electric. He holds an offer from Georgia. So I think that when you see the word backfill, how does Georgia fill that? There's a guy in state, looks pretty good. He actually earned a camp offer from the Dogs over the summer, but he's still not ranked yet. We can't attach him as a 3-star or a 4-star, but I've seen his film. Guy looks pretty good. I don't know if he's quite Chase Linton from a year ago, but he's kind of in that mold where Georgia thinks it might have found somebody under the radar in state to kind of be a late push, late add to the class.
Well, when it comes to Corey Howard, we wish you nothing but the best, but we've got to move on in this new era of recruiting. So we're going to move on within the show. We've got a DawgNation conversation coming up. We'll also take a look at some of the best class plays from 2026, but it's Hedges on a Tuesday. Obviously, there's a reason for that. We've got something going on tomorrow night that we're super excited about, and we hope that you'll join us for it.
This is the Georgia football family answering the call for Coach Mark Richt.
Coach Richt's just a pillar in the community, and he's meant so much to me in my career.
It's the Chick-fil-A Dog Bowl, helping raise money to fight Parkinson's and Crohn's.
It's been amazing how much fun everybody has.
Coach Kirby Smart, his players, and UGA legends all coming together.
If Coach Richt was doing this in the Middle East, I'd be there.
You can help by donating at ricksdogbowl.com.
All the proceeds for this event will go to the Isaacson Center for Neurological Disease Research.
And you can watch it on October 22nd at 6:15.
DawgNation's going to stream the event live.
It's the Chick-fil-A Dog Bowl.
Tune into it, watch it, but support it. Donate.
Take a bite out of Parkinson's and Crohn's.
So this isn't quick five, but I feel like we could still put our fives up because we've got a DawgNation conversation with a 5-star safety that's right here within the state of Georgia. That's Chance Gilbert, who attends East Coweta. He's the nation's number 3 safety, number 30 overall player in the class of 2027. We'll hear from him in just a moment. But before we do, just talk to me about what stands out about his skill set, Jeff.
First of all, I've been watching Chance. I asked him, because it was about 15, 18 years ago. He was not named after Chance the Rapper. I got confirmation on that because I was sitting there going, Chance. And it was like, well, 17 years ago, maybe.
Not quite.
Not quite. But you mentioned all the rankings. Kaylee, I think this is a dude. He plays both ways for Coweta. Now, Coweda's, I think, only one game this year. They've had a tough region. They've had to face Carrollton. They've had to face Douglas County. Kaylee, this is the woe part. And I'm going to say this matter-of-factly. When I try to do things like this, I want you to take it for serious. He ran a 10.57 in high school as a freshman.
Wow.
That's really fast. 6'1", 175-ish, plays both sides of the ball. He went head-to-head with Craig Dandridge earlier this year. Craig Dandridge got him a little bit.
I was going to say.
So he stopped him as well. Kaylee, I want everybody to judge for themselves. And I'll come out with my opinion when you get a chance to watch this video and see this conversation. But this young man, I think, is going to impress a lot of people.
All right, then I say we just go ahead and get to it. This is the latest with 5-star safety Chance Gilbert on a DawgNation conversation.
Well, I know I got a God-given ability to play this sport when it comes to speed. When I was younger, I noticed my ability with when it comes to speed and attacking the ball, just doing anything athletic. And then I played football, figured I was good at it, and then I chose to honor God with that sport because, He give us certain gifts, so I choose to play this sport and honor Him with it. So,
how was the Georgia visit? I know you were there. They brought you down early, right?
Yeah, it was nice. The staff, they was hyped, and they had the energy, the atmosphere. It was crazy. Everybody was cool. Everybody was getting along. I was talking to other recruits. It was nice to see people from IMG, Carrollton, Douglas County, people like that. As I go out there, I see big old linemen. It made me look small. It's just crazy to see all the other recruits and the coaches. It's a great opportunity.
Is it like anybody who's there that day, man? It sounded like it's a reunion or a convention of big-time football players, huh?
Yeah, it was they had some legends that used to go to Georgia there. It was awesome. I look forward to going back. I think they play Texas soon. I look forward to going to that game. I think it's a home game there. I'll probably be there too.
How do you feel about Georgia? Were they like a school that offered you early and showed you a lot of love? Where does Georgia stack up for you?
They're definitely a top 3 if I had to. Definitely a team that that I highly love. I would love to go there. I don't know where I'm actually going, but they're definitely a top 3 team. It's home. It's Georgia. You can't go wrong with staying home. So definitely top 3, and I look for. If you start there, you have like a high opportunity of going pro. You go into the league if you start. So that stands out to me.
What do you like best about Georgia? Is it the way they develop your position and send guys to the league?
Yes, sir. I mean, Kirby, great coach. Staff, great coaching there. They get their players right, get them strong and big, coaching them very well, and that definitely stands out.
Like, has Georgia said this is why we want you? Like, this is what we like about your game. Like, why are they pursuing it? It sounds like they're recruiting you really hard right now, right?
Yeah.
Why do they want you?
Well, it's rare to have a safety that can do everything on the field when it comes to coming downhill, using it. I mean, you can't go wrong with a speed safety that has speed. It's God-given. You can't coach speed. So I can see why they're recruiting me hard.
What's important to you? Like, some kids today now tell me straight up NIL or development or, like, close to home. Like, what are the big factors going to be for you?
I say my relationship with God, that's first. If I go to a college and they speak about Jesus make me comfortable, that definitely stands out. The number one thing that makes me comfortable, and the number one thing that stands out too. So in the environment, so the environment and Jesus, how the college faith is with Jesus, that stands out.
How important is your faith? Like, do you do things before the game to honor and glorify God? Like, how big a part is that for you?
That's the most important thing. I mean, without that, I won't be confident on the field. I got to pray. I got to listen to worship music, because Jesus, he's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now. My main purpose is to spread his gospel and lead others closer to Christ as I play this sport. So that's my main purpose. I mean, I play football, but that's the number one purpose, to lead others to him.
So you mentioned top 3. Do you have 3 in your mind? Where's Georgia at with all those other schools? Not a ranking, but which other schools are up there with your top 3?
Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia Tech. There's a lot more other schools, but I'll keep it there. I'll keep it right. Those are the top schools right there.
Clemson, Alabama, Georgia Tech?
And Georgia.
And Georgia. Okay, so you got a 4, really, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I mean, well-spoken young man, clearly strong in his faith. He's got big decisions to make ahead of him. But at least for me, the thing that I wonder about is Georgia currently has 3 safeties in the class of 2026. Do you feel like he's one of those early must-haves for 2027?
Kaylee, I think it is for a lot of reasons. You guys saw kind of his character there. But first of all, let me explain the Tech thing, because I know a lot of people went, hold on, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia Tech, Georgia. There are 2 brothers, the Hurd brothers. They're twins at East Coweta. They're both committed to Tech in this class. So Tech keeps coming around East Coweta, and it kind of feels like they're recruiting. It sounds to me like it kind of feels like they're recruiting Chance Gilbert hard, but really they're coming to see their 2 commits. Kaylee, he's probably going to run a 10-2 this spring in track. That's stupid fast. Also, if you look at Georgia, I don't know if they have a lot of safeties right now, especially the level that they've had in years past with Lewis Seen, Malachi Starks, Javon Bullard. I mean, this is a guy that plays both ways. He could play. I mean, he actually matched up with Craig Dandridge as a pure corner on sometimes, because they had to walk down because they had to put their best guy on Cambridge's best guy. There's a lot of things I like about him, but I'm almost moving him, Kaylee, into that. Like when we do our next top targets, I think he's in my top 5 because maybe only the person clearly above him in my book is DJ Jacobs.
Yeah.
And here's why I say this. I asked him a question, and we didn't include that in the conversation because Chance had a lot of cool things to say. But I asked him, I said, listen, man, you're at East Coweta. I'd never been to East Coweta before to look at a recruit being pursued by the University of Georgia, much less a 5-star, right? And I said, man, just kind of casually, I was like, hey, how hard is it for you to stay at a place like this?
That's a great question.
Because it's almost like, Kaylee, it's almost like a tractor beam. Like you get sucked away. I mean, there's Carrollton, there's all these kinds of schools that could kind of, big programs that could kind of, he could look at and say, I want to go win. I want to go get a spotlight. Kaylee, he told me, and this is what I'll think of when Chance Gilbert is in the NFL. He said, if I was somewhere else succeeding on a Friday night, it would not feel right if my guys weren't with me. He said it wouldn't feel right because he would look at it and he'd go, okay, I might have won, but how did East Coweta do? And he would be like, they didn't win. He'd feel like he was like leaving his guys behind. The guys that he had juice boxes with growing up in middle school and grade school and stuff like that. Kaylee, that is very rare. And to me, that is just as rare as a high school sophomore that can run a 10.57.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make like a general assumption because we have seen guys that have transferred to high school that have stayed with their schools, but also we've seen a pattern before of kids that transfer within high school and then they transfer in college or switch up right before. Like we've seen it. So, I do think that says a lot about him. Any word if he'll visit the Georgia Tech game?
I think he's going to be at Georgia, Texas. You heard that one, right?
Yeah.
That will be his second visit. Kaylee, here's what's crazy. Another thing, I love this Chance Gilbert story for so many reasons, but I asked him about the Georgia-Alabama game, and he was like, man, that's the best game I've ever been to. I was like, all right, it makes a lot of sense. But right before that, he said, that's the first game I've ever been to. And he was like, hold on, no. I actually saw Georgia Tech and Clemson. So this is a young man who is a 5-star junior in the state of Georgia, who had yet to be on the campus, big game day for a college football game until this year. So I hate it for him because there's not going to be many games that top Georgia and Alabama and Sanford earlier this year. But so many things about Chance Gilbert, the loyalty he shows, his faith, what he plays for, how he values development already, and sees what he told me. He's like, man, I think about Georgia when I'm watching him play, and he's like, I'm 6'1", 175, so I get hurt a lot because I just get hurt a lot because I touch the ball a lot. I play both ways. He's like, Georgia's going to make a guy like me into 6'1", 205 pounds. He's like, I'm going to be a monster. I can't wait to be a guy like that. And then he said, matter-of-factly in that interview, if you start for Georgia, you're going to go play in the NFL. So he likes that a lot about Georgia.
Well, speaking of Georgia and Georgia Tech, it is coming up. Tickets are on sale now. And I would go ahead and purchase yours if I were you because it looks like these are going to go really fast. Both Georgia and Georgia Tech ranked within the top 10 at the same time for the first time in a long time. So this game is gearing up to be very, very important for both teams. Really want to pack it out with Dogs fans. So go purchase your tickets at mercedes-benzstadium.com/events. At any point this game is going to be sold out. So don't wait anymore. Go ahead and get them now because, who would have thought that this could end up being the game of the year for both teams, and everybody in the country is going to be watching this with this game played on a Friday. So get your tickets, wear that red, pack out Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and you can get the tickets at mercedes-benzstadium.com/events. All right, so now let's get into some of the best plays that we saw from the class of 2026.
Oof.
This is Mansell's Details. I know sometimes you just have to take a moment to get into it.
You have to. Make sure to swivel your chair around like Kaylee's floating your chair around.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. We'll start out with the wide receiver, Brady Marchese. It's really just a classic Brady Marchese route. Little go ball right to the end zone. He's always reliable, always there. You can just tell the way that he sees the ball, his ability to turn his body. I don't know if there's a player that continues to show up on this list each and every week like Brady Marchese.
He's a guy that didn't have a bye week. He had 3 catches, 3 touchdowns. Kaylee, that's pretty good, right?
3 catches for 70 yards.
And then 3 touchdowns. And I wanted to tell you, you were talking about the routes, right? They should just call that one a Marchese.
Yeah,
I like
he's
that.
so fast. We've talked about the speed before, but as Jeff said, 3 catches for 70 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 52-0 win over Cedartown, which is a very worthy opponent, but you would never know that because Cartersville is dominating teams right now. Let's go ahead and move it on to our next player. This is Tyree Green, 2 special teams plays. Okay, so punt return coming in. Here comes Tyreek Green. We're going to do a break tackle count. Starting here. 1, 2, looks like 3, maybe 4 right there, 5, and then just gets close enough to the end zone. Doesn't get all the way in, but the breaking tackles is impressive in itself. It's a 55-yard punt return.
Kaylee, this is one of those things. People are going to look at that and the breakometer maybe or something like that. And again, this is Central Gwinnett. I think they have one of the better, cooler stadium effects for their press box in the state. But their special teams tackling, probably not tops in the state. A lot of people are going to see this, Kaylee, and they're going to go, Tyree Green, offensive player, question mark? thinking about it? Maybe, because you're going to hit him with some stats here, Kaylee.
Okay, but also maybe it's not offensive player necessarily, but definitely a special teams guy perhaps, because we've got another special teams highlight to show you from Tyreek Green. Okay, this one's going to be a kickoff return. It's funny too because the cameraman can't even really keep up with him at this point, but look, he's going to go right here to the sideline. It looks like he's out, and the next thing you know, boom, pops back in, runs it along down the sideline for a 67-yard kickoff return.
Kaylee, you know, a lot of old coaches say that the sideline has more tackles than anyone in the history of football. Not that Central Gwinnett sideline, because that one was Tyreek Green 1, Central Gwinnett sideline 0 right there. Again, he's just boogieing. He's just boogieing down the sideline, Kaylee.
Finishes the night with 223 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns that included a kickoff return, a receiving touchdown, and a rushing touchdown. So, I mean, he's really doing it all for a super talented Buford team, by the way.
I think maybe he had 6 cups of Powerade in the second half of that game, because I think this one was, 75-0 or 72-0?
Yeah.
And he was on easy street. I'd imagine he probably only played these 6-7 plays in that game.
So this next one I actually got to see in person with my own eyes. Look, it's going to take a second to show where that circle is, where Kelsey Adams is. You're going to see it right there. Just pay attention to him, because he is about to start dragging this guy probably 10 yards. I think the refs finally had to stop him. Yeah. Listen, it was a 45-5 win, and what's crazy is he's actually the highest rated player on a super talented Langston Hughes team. Carries his teammate all the way back. He's class of 2027, but you know that Georgia's going to be happy to have him.
Yeah, it's like, I think there needs to be a new stat, excuse me. Not a pancake, but I guess that's going to be a luggage carry or something like that. Or, I mean, that guy backpacks his way like he's going across the Himalayas and gets 12 yards for his running back. Kaylee, you think those are team rushing yards, or you give those rushing yards to the back on the individual carry right there?
And correction, it was a 40-5 win. I was there. It was a really competitive first half, but Langston Hughes just ran away with it in the second half. But one thing that we had pointed out is now you've got Dontrell Glover, Bo Hughley, both from Langston Hughes, who are starting, and I feel like Kelsey Adams could just be the next great offensive lineman to come out of Langston Hughes, because those guys are so plug and play. One more person we wanted to mention. This comes from Asa Wall, the newest Georgia commit. Just 3 receptions for 168 yards, 3 touchdowns, also 1 tackle for loss. So wanted to make sure that we included him in here. And with that, it's time to get to our most impressive performance of the week. This is our Dawg of the week.
I'm a big dog, no leash, you all part, no teeth. That's a whole lot of wins on me. That's a whole lot of wins on me.
And for the second week in a row, it's 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis out of Nashville, Tennessee. 15 of 21 for 238 yards, 6 touchdowns to 1 interception. And by the way, 35 points scored in the second quarter. He also had a quick 26-yard run, and Nashville Christian went 70-0. We're going to show you some of his plays from the night, starting with this first one. Now, granted, he's got a lot of time to throw the ball, still scrambling, throws it off that back foot, and it is perfect.
Yeah.
That is the perfect throw into the end zone.
I think it looks like he practices these over and over,
Oh, my
Kaylee.
gosh.
One of the things here, and it's funny, the QB reps, that's the agents, the people that represent Curtis. They also represent Ty Simpson at Alabama, right? They put out a graphic this week. I thought it was pretty slick. It's a comic book of his highlights that have kind of been animated through AI, and he's making all these comic book type plays. Well, Kaylee, that's the first of many right here for Jared Curtis.
And people can say that he has all the time in the world to throw. That does not matter. Even if you have all the time in the world to throw that ball, the ball placement for the receiver is so perfect, just enough out of reach from the defender. It's a gorgeous pass. So we'll give shout out to Jared Curtis on that one. Then the next one is just going to be a montage of some of the touchdown throws that he had. A lot of these you'll kind of see, other than this one right here, they're going to be chest passes. I love that he fakes out the camera guy in that first one right there, thinking it's going to the guy in the corner. It's a dart over the middle. Then what you'll see here, again, lots of chest passes, screen passes, all touchdown passes. But I mean, up until a week ago when it was Georgia versus Ole Miss, I know a lot of people would say that he's going to fit perfect in that Mike Bobo offense because he can really throw the screen pass.
Kelly, it's an easy gas with Jared a lot. You see here, one of the things, and you just love watching this film, this guy, right? But like one of those things, you hear coaches and scouts all the time. And there's one coach, I think he works at the Elite 11. He's always said something like, the guy throws it so hard, you can hear the laces screaming. And I imagine like a baby screaming, because like there's throws here, especially that first one, Kaylee, where the ball goes 53, 54, 5 yards in the air. And Kaylee, it looks like he's just literally, this is overstated, but it literally looks like he's throwing a cornhole back.
Mm-hmm. So for second week in a row, the dog of the week is the 5-star quarterback, Jared Curtis, which if you're a Georgia fan, I mean, you want to see him be it every single week. 70-0 win. That is crazy.
Starting to get some Talon Taylor type momentum that he had last year,
For
right?
sure. He's definitely the early front runner for the Talon Taylor Award of the year.
Man.
Okay, so we're going to do class breakdown here in just a moment, but if you like listening to the show, if you like watching any of our DawgNation shows, it would just mean a lot to us if you could give us a like on this show, and on top of that, if you could subscribe to our DawgNation YouTube page, and if you hit that little bell right next to it, you get notified anytime that we post. And I feel like this football season, I really want to brag on our production team in the studio. They've been putting out a lot of wonderful content, especially in our YouTube shorts, and everybody in Athens doing the press conferences. So you can subscribe to us. That gives us a big thank you. And then also getting the notification anytime that we post content. So thank you guys for doing that. And with that, we will move on to our class breakdown. It is going to look a little bit different this week, not the offensive side of the ball. So we'll just briefly go over the 2026 offense. As we said earlier, Jared Curtis, current dog of the week. Everybody locked down except for Jay Lamar. Update.
Jay Lamar, I wondered if he was going to show up on Athens on Saturday. He did not. I kind of been told that he might. This week, Kaylee's kind of big, Camden County. I was told to circle that game, Camden County, because although Jay Lamar is still a member of the team at Camden County, hasn't suited up yet. Does he suit up this week for Camden? Does he play against Camden? That will let us know that he is back in the good graces, or at least he is a contributing member and a fine and upstanding current member of the Colquitt County football team. So a lot of people are going to look at the Colquitt County box score this week, not to see how many touchdowns Jay Lamar had, but to see if Jay Lamar actually got some run.
Right. All right, now we'll move on to the defense, which of course no longer includes Corey Howard, but I definitely wanted to ask about Seven Cloud. I know that we kind of touched on him earlier in the show. Do we have a status update on him? Like, is it one of those things where he just might go somewhere else, or would Georgia potentially remove him from this class?
Yeah, I think that's going to be very interesting to watch there, Kaylee. It's one of those things where what have we been to? We've had the Ole Miss game, we've had the Kentucky game, we've had the Alabama game. There were some scrub cupcake games early in the year. Still no Seven Cloud taking a visit to see Georgia. He's committed to Georgia. He was committed to Georgia back in 2021, I believe, and then he's part of the 2023 class. And I think I'm going to let the viewer, because, again, we don't want to disparage these young people, but I'm going to let the viewer interpret what I'm about to say here is that not visiting Georgia, and there's got to be a reason why he's not visiting Georgia when he's a commitment. Obviously, he has the off-the-field issues there that I don't think they've fully been resolved. You just want to wish the best for Seven Cloud. There's been rumblings that did he go visit Oklahoma State? Did he go visit Kentucky? I don't know. I just don't feel like these are not the signs that we're used to looking at, Kaylee. These are not the things happening that indicates to me that he's going to wind up at Georgia.
However, they do have a lot of wiggle room within the defensive line. So regardless of what happens, as soon as we know updates, we will let you know. And with that, we'll give a shout out to the special teams guys. Heron Zarakat, the kicker, punter Wade Register, who I don't know how he's feeling after watching Georgia not punt the ball at all on Saturday, but I guess you consider that a win for everybody. So we'll give a shout out to the special teams. We'll move on to the snapshot. And what's crazy is Georgia has lost 2 commits over the last 2 weeks, but their class rank has not changed. Does it just have to do with the amount of players that they have, or is it the quality of players?
I think it's the amount, because I think USC has 32 commitments. Georgia has 29 now. I think Alabama now has 23. Alabama's third, followed by Notre Dame and Texas A&M. So that's something to kind of monitor there. You think Georgia, are they going to get like a huge flip that's going to move them forward? I don't think so. And I think Georgia's probably going to settle in the 29 range, especially when you see that they might lose up a couple more players off this class. that we mentioned kind of every week. But then how many will Alabama get? Will Alabama get 2 or 3 more? There's not really a lot more Alabama-ish type players out there as well, unless they flip them on from somebody else's board. But Kaylee, let me tell you what's happening right now. Some weird things are happening right now. You read headlines, and you've got Ohio State trying to flip a Wake Forest commitment.
Oh.
I mean, it's just what it is.
I wasn't even sure they knew where or what Wake Forest was.
Might be the first flip of a Wake Forest commitment in Ohio State football recruiting history. But, there's some interesting things going on in these streets right now.
I see that. Well, we've got some interesting things going on today's Before the Hedges, because there's been probably the most movement or additions to the 2026 top targets since, probably way back in the summer. So we've got 3 pages of top targets to show you. This one's a little bit different because it includes 3 guys that Georgia has yet to offer. I got the chance to see Quantavious Wiggins on Friday night. He's out of Langston Hughes. He was our player of the game. And also you've got Jack Rhodes, a Virginia commit, an interior offensive lineman, and Eddie Alford, who is a Memphis commit. So why do you feel like it's important to put them on there if they don't have a Georgia offer yet?
Because Georgia's talking, and they have these extra spots in the class that are opening up. So it's almost like, that phase in those high school relationships where you're not dating yet, but you're talking.
A situationship.
These are situationships waiting for the offer of the scholarship right now. And there's probably another name we could add here, Terrence Pinnock Jr. out of South Gwinnett. He was also in Athens over the weekend. I think Terrence is committed to Coastal Carolina. I want to zero in on 2 names. Number 1, Quantavious Wiggins. It sounds like something's happening there because he's playing really well.
He's really, really good.
He's good. He fits the profile. He's not just a speed back. He's between the tackles back. He really told me after the visit he had, which is his first visit to Georgia for Ole Miss, he really liked how Georgia used their backs in the passing game. That really caught his eye. Currently committed to Florida International. Wait on that one because I think there's some things cooking up right there. And I got to do my job here. Jack Rhodes is out of Aquinas High School in Augusta. He's committed to Virginia as a receiver.
Okay.
Kaylee, right now, he is the quarterback at Aquinas. Injuries have forced him there. So he's showing some legs. He's showing some arm. He's still going to go play some receiver when they get in, passing situations. That's the type of stuff that catches Georgia's eye. Jack told me, he said the food was good. That's one of the things that people still noticed about it. Hey, man, I'm sure that's honest.
If that's what gets the job done, I'll take it.
He said the food was good, but he says we're talking. They're evaluating me, and they're watching every game. Kaylee, I think he put up 250 all-purpose in his last game.
Wow.
So that's one of those. Are they on the grill yet? No, but I think they're marinating. Anybody that likes to get on the grill and do it and show what they got a little bit, I think the steaks are marinating right now.
You had me understanding what you meant at situationship. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next page of top targets again, showing some movement. So a lot of these guys moved down from their initial position. The cornerback Travis Stevenson, who's a Georgia Tech commit, Messiah Mickens, the Penn State running back, who we talked a lot about last week, and then Will Rajecki also moving down. Then you've got a new name on the list, a Washington commit. He's a cornerback 3-star out of Oakland, California. What is Georgia doing so late with Rashawn Duncan out of Oakland?
Yeah, out of UW. He's currently committed to the other Dogs on the West Coast, the Washington Huskies. He's from Oakland. All the MC Hammer fans will know what I'm talking about when I say Oaktown. But he was supposed to be in Athens this weekend for the Ole Miss game. Did not visit, but it was because I was told his game got changed. His game got changed from a Friday to a Saturday. We all know what that means. You don't want to take an official when you're playing on Saturday. That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to wait and see. I think Georgia will get him for another game. Is it Charlotte? Is it Texas? Let's wait and watch that one. Again, Kaylee, one more thing to mention about Duncan. Georgia's on him. So is Oregon. So is Ohio State. So this is one of those guys that I call it a grow-up pill. The senior film is shining. He's showing himself to be a much better player of late in his senior year because all these big guys are offering now.
So let's move into our top 4 here because there's a lot to work through with this top 4. So we've got a new number 1, which is Tyreek Jemison, who we spoke about earlier. Yeah. Jarmay Mitchell is the only one who stayed the same, the 3-star offensive lineman who's currently committed to Mississippi State. He's JUCO. Amari Latimer moves down to number 3, which I don't think comes as that big of a surprise because we know that he's kind of been flirting with Ohio State. And then we've got edge Colin Bussey out of Douglasville, Georgia, who you also brought up earlier. I mean, realistically, who's the most obtainable on this list for Georgia?
Kaylee, I think it's the top two right now. I'm not going to even put Amari Latimer in the context of answering your question. I think he was crystal balled recently, or I think it was, give props to somebody that does this in the industry. I think he was fong bombed to Ohio State. And
yeah.
Georgia fans do not like the sound of that, because that's a guy in state that Georgia was like, maybe. And then Ohio State just comes in and starts with both barrels, and they've gotten crystal balled coming into Georgia, especially where Georgia is at running back recently, recruiting-wise. Bussey is a guy that I think Georgia can get if they want him. I think they're going to continue to evaluate there. And I think Jemison and Mitchell are, you got to wonder, does Georgia go get another offensive lineman? I think Mitchell is kind of more plug and play, where Jemison's going to have to wait a couple years, but you always need guys like that. Here's what I'm foreseeing, Kaylee. I think there's a lot of guys at Georgia, and you guys can look at the roster, and you can see that guy's been there a couple years. He's still not playing. Maybe he got jumped by Dontrell Glover. Maybe he got jumped by Juan Gaston. Maybe he's still not getting a lot of run with the injuries to Ernest Green and also Monroe Freeling. I think those guys would see the handwriting on the wall a little bit and be like, okay, maybe we need to go somewhere else. I think Georgia's going to need to get a couple more offensive linemen, and I'm speaking about guys that might hit the portal, especially when they see a young man like Ekene Boko, a 5-star tackle, also coming in as well. So I think Georgia can probably never have too many big guys right there.
So one final question to end the show. You had mentioned that Georgia's just trying to fill spots at this point. How many more spots do you think that they have in 2026?
Well, I think it's filling needs more appropriately than spots, but I would say they're looking at they've got 29, Kaylee, but I think reality-wise, I don't see 29 commitments on this class right now. I see 27. So I think Georgia's probably got 2 or 3 more guys that they're going to work with, especially for the right guys, in terms of what they're going to go and what they're going to find. I know this. One of the things this staff prides itself on, and there's about 3 or 4 examples every year, where they call them the senior year finds. It's like, they keep looking and they want to see a kid that figures it out, he develops. We mentioned Chase Linton, we mentioned Dennis Ozuchukwu last year as well. There's always a couple of guys that Georgia circles themselves around in November, and they're like, you know what, we missed on that guy. That guy's pretty good. And I think it all goes back to Kirby Smart said this one time at SEC Media Days, he was at Alabama, and Bradley Chubb was coming up at Hillgrove, and they were like, we're Alabama, we can get all the best edges and defensive ends in the country, but we'd already gotten our 3, and then here's this kid his senior year, and they didn't have any more room. And they were like, one of the things is they always kind of monitor and try to see like, hey, is there a guy playing right now that's better film than some of the guys that we've got and some of the guys that we had rated higher upon them? And that just shows that Georgia is always looking for players, especially players inside the state of Georgia.
Well, I wouldn't be totally honest with you if I didn't tell you I was a little bit disappointed to not see Savion Hyder back on the top targets list, but it is what it is. You know. All right, we got to go there for real. Y'all check out Dawg Bowl tomorrow. We'll be back in our normal Wednesday night spot next week ahead of Georgia, Florida, a big one. So we'll see you right back here next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
So Georgia, who I'm picking, I love the family atmosphere in the way